Hello, thank you everyone for joining us on day 4 of Build with Mapbox 2025. You've made it to this session getting started with the Maps SDK for iOS with our presenter Emily Ryan from our Developer Relations and Documentation team. Thank you so much for joining us live today, Emily, and you're going to walk us through an excellent training session all about Maps SDK and iOS. Before we get started, just a few logistical notes. Reminder, this session is being recorded along with all of the other build sessions. You'll be able to find the recording in the Zoom events lobby if you want to rewatch it. If you would like to have captions or translations, those are available at the bottom of your Zoom window. Also, we do have the Q&A box open. If you'd like to submit a question for Emily, that'll be open throughout the whole presentation. So go ahead and drop in questions as we go. That's it from me. So with that, I'll hand things over to Emily.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marina. Hi, everyone. Like Marina said, my name's Emily. I'm one of the developer relations specialists here at Mapbox. I do a lot of our content creation. I do like guide audits. And I actually interpret a lot of your guys' user feedback as well. So thank you for all your submissions. You really help make our documentation what it is. But yeah, so I'm going to walk you through getting started with the Maps SDK for iOS. And to go through our agenda for today, we're going to talk through creating Mapbox tokens and configure your credentials. We're also going to stop and add Mapbox dependencies to your project so you can actually access the SDK in your iOS application. We're then going to walk through a bunch of different code snippets, things like adding a map to your application, adjusting the map style and viewport so you can, give your map different aesthetics and change the camera angles. We're going to also do a lot of work with markers, as well as some GeoJSON. And then at the end, we're going to wrap up with discussions of some potential next steps you can do to level up your application, and then wrap up with Q&A. But yeah, if you want to follow along with this presentation, because I'm going to walk through pretty slow with certain aspects, you'll just need Xcode, a Mapbox account, a marker PNG, and then you'll also need the Getting Started with Maps SDK for iOS tutorial, which if you need the QR code or to type in the URL, here is a copy right here. But yeah, so I'll walk you guys through this implementation. Oh, I should also mention too, we will be using SwiftUI for this integration. We do have UI kit code snippets with all of our tutorials, but for the implementation that we're going to be walking through here, we'll be using SwiftUI, just so it's a heads up for if you're following along with this presentation. All right, let's get started with adding your Mapbox token. So in order to use Mapbox, you need Mapbox tokens, and this will allow you to get access to Mapbox services and different Mapbox features in your implementation or in your application. And in order to do this, we're going to make some adjustments to our info p list with our token, and then add the actual token itself to our info p list. To grab your token, you're going to need to go to console.mapbox.com. And on this page in the right corner, you're going to see your default public token, and you'll be able to copy it. I have it off to the side, but you'll be able to copy it like so, as you can see on the screen. You can also create additional tokens if you have like multiple integrations that you're working with, and you want different tokens for different integrations, by going to console.mapbox.com/access tokens. But again, we'll just use for this integration our default access token, but to get to do that, let's go over to Xcode and get started with that. All right, so I'm going to copy my token. We're going to go into, if you click on your like overall project target name, and then we're going to go into the info plist section, click the plus button to add a new key, and we're going to type MBX access token in camel case. And then for a value over here, we're just going to add that token that we mentioned. Make sure that this says, make sure to have the right kind of token, that it says pk dot something. If you're using an SK token, which is one of our secret tokens, that might not work. So just make sure you have your pk token here. All right, so now that we've added our token, let's go back to the presentation. And next, we're going to walk through actually adding the dependency itself to your project, and using the package manager to add the SDK to your project. To do that, like I said, we're going to use the package manager, and then we're going to make sure that our targets are properly linked to the package once it's added. All right, so let's swipe over here and do that. So in order to add the package, we're going to go to File. And then we're going to go to add package dependencies. I already have it listed here, but for your guys' sake, if to copy the correct Git URL, you're going to want to go to your go to the Getting Started with Maps SDK for iOS tutorial, and then you're going to scroll down to where is it? Step number two, part two, add the dependency. And if you're using the Swift package manager, you can go here and copy the GitHub URL to paste into the search bar to make it easier for you to find. So if we go back over here, we can paste this, it'll come up automatically for you. If you're following along in the tutorial as well, you'll notice that it says for the best way to integrate, you're going to want to go to up to next major version. And right now we're on our 11 version of the SDK. And this will grab whatever the latest stable version of Mapbox is. And you can just type that there, and then we're going to hit add dependency. So this will take a couple of seconds to load up and add to your project. But once that's all set, you're going to click here and then make sure to select the top option to link to your target and then click add package. All right, and then check on the left side too to make sure it integrated correctly, that not only you can see all four of these package dependencies, but also if you go to general and then scroll down under frameworks, libraries, and embedded content, you can see the Mapbox Maps library listed here as well. All right, now that we have that integrated correctly, we're gonna actually start adding some code to our project. So in order to add a map to your application, we're gonna need to grab the map code from the tutorial and paste that into our project, run the simulator, and then I'm gonna walk you through common troubleshooting steps or troubleshooting tips in case you're not seeing the map appear. But yeah, so let's go back and grab from the tutorial. We're gonna scroll down to part 3, add a map. And then make sure it says SwiftUI down here, but we're going to copy this code and then we're going to paste this into our project. So in our Xcode here, underneath the top folder here, we're going to click on Content View. Since I don't have anything here, I'm just going to copy and paste everything. But so this will paste the map code. As you can see here, we're creating a center coordinate. Right now, this is going to hover over the center of the United States. And then we're setting an initial viewport and passing in a camera with some default values. So the camera is going to appear over the center of the United States, set at a zoom level 2, which will be pretty far out from the map. And then we're not going to add any rotations with bearing and pitch. But this will, once we hit load here, this will load up the simulator and we'll be able to see this in action. So we'll give that a second to load. All right, build succeeded. So this will pop up in a second. Oh, sorry, hold on a second. I gotta grab it from the bottom. Here we go. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Oh. All right, so here is our simulator. So as you can see, we have a map spawned. You could click on the map, you can drag it around, you can zoom into the map. And yeah, so there, quick integration for getting just a map up and running in your application. Um, like I mentioned before, some common troubleshooting issues that you might run into if you got to this step and you're not seeing a map in your application. I recommend making sure that your target is selected for the package. Like I said before, you're going to want to click on that drop down and select the target. If you don't have it selected or you don't see it in your project, you can go back to your target and then go to general and scroll down and you can add it here. So you'd be able to click this plus button and then type like Mapbox Maps and you'd be able to add it this way if you didn't add it before. Next, just try closing and rebuilding the simulator. Sometimes it takes a second for things to spin up and just, turning it on and off again will fix it. And then lastly, just make sure that the token you submitted for your info plist is valid. Make sure it's not expired. Like I said, make sure it's not a secret token with like the wrong dependencies. But yeah, so that will help you get up and started with the map. Next, we're gonna go in and change the viewport. So you can adjust kind of how your map spawns and like what camera angle you're utilizing. So let's go through. Actually, I'll point out. And the different ways that you can do that is you can change where the center of your map is spawning, so like where the camera is spawning in longitude and latitude. You can also change the zoom levels. The smaller the zoom number, the further out from the map you're going to be. And then for pitch and bearing, those are just going to change the rotation of the camera, both vertical and horizontally. But I'll show you guys that in action. So if I go back to content view, let's change some, variables here. Let's say I'm gonna add, 20 to this. I'm gonna take 20 from that and we'll change, let's say like zoom in a lot here and just add some general rotation here. So again, just picking some random values to see the change in the map, but let's replace that, give that a second to load. All right. And so now you're going to see that, oh, we happen to be over water, but now we're in a completely different spot in the map. Um, let's see if I can get back to land. That's all right. So we're in a completely different spot on the map. And now a problem you might be asking is, okay, well, am I gonna have to like manually adjust all these changes in my code to like see how different views would look? Um, a good way to help with that so you're not going in and manually changing the code like this is using our tool, the location helper. So the location helper is really nice because it'll emulate what your map would look like. For example, I've zoomed in on Providence, Rhode Island here. And you can move around the map and on the left side here, it will update these values for you. So you know like what if this exact settings would look like in your application. Um, and they do everything from like, the your center coordinate here, what your zoom is, what your bearing is, if you want to change the location or the angle of rotation. But yeah, so let's take these values over to our project and adjust them to mimic what we have over in Location Helper. So we're grabbing the center of Providence here. We have a 12.85 zoom level, which isn't too different than what we have now, but and then for what I grabbed, the bearing, we're going to change a decent amount, and then we'll also change the pitch. Copy that over there. And now if I run the emulator again, you're going to see that it's going to look the same as it does in our location helper. So again, we'll help you prevent a lot of like manual changing in the code and rerunning the simulator a million times. But yeah, so you can see that we're mimicking the view here. You can see Route 44, you can see Women and Infants Hospital, just like you can over on this side. But yeah, so location helper tool is really good for if you're trying to figure out what you want your viewport to look like. All right, now that we've gone over the location helper, if you need to access the link yourself, feel free to use this QR code or the link down below. But now that we've done that, we can now talk about changing the look of the map itself. So if you wanted to change the style, let's talk about like the lighting or the coloring themes. You can utilize standard in order to make these adjustments. The nice thing with standard is it handles a lot of the customization for you. So it does a lot of templating where a lot of the things, like if you were to build your own custom style, you'd have to make a lot of decisions up front of like how you would want certain things to look. But with Mapbox standard, it handles a lot of that for you. So you'll have something out of the box just able to use right away. And similarly with Location Helper, we could go in and make a bunch of adjustments of how we would want the map to look, but we can use our Mapbox standard playground to figure out what look we're going for and then implement the code. So I'm gonna bring up the playground now. And so over here, again, this tool is super helpful because you can go in and change like the lighting presets and it will change it automatically for you to show you what it would look like. So yeah, like you can see, dawn, day, dusk, night. Same thing with like the coloring style if you wanted like a faded look or you'd want like a monochrome style. Also, if you have lookup tables, you can insert them here like this. We just have some default values here to see how it would work. But for this, let's do a faded look with like a dawn light. So you kind of have like this like morning glow. On the right side too, we have some code over here that you can use to copy it into your program. But yes, let us go back to Xcode and start doing that ourselves. So first I'm going to copy this over. And we're going to we're going to access Mapbox standard and adjust the style ourselves. So we're accessing standard here, and then we're changing the theme as well as the lighting preset. So if I get this up and running, we're going to see the changing of both the lighting as well as the color. And the nice thing too, if say for instance, you did want to go in and make adjustments, if you click here, you can see all the other options that we saw over in Mapbox Standard. But again, we'll stick with Dawn for now. But yeah, so that's walking through changing the style. Like we said, we access the style, change the lighting, and then change the map's colors. All right, now that we've done some stylistic changes, let's talk about adding markers to our map. So there's a bunch of different types of markers, but I'm going to focus on two for now, both circle annotation and point annotation. So circle annotations are really great because they're quick and easy to implement, but they don't have a lot of customization options. So it's really good if you want to just like highlight a point of interest and not make a bunch of adjustments. As you can see on the left side, there's just a big blue dot in the middle of the United States. Good for quick integration again, not as customizable. And then on the right side, we have a point annotation, which that's good for like adding custom markers to your map. So in this case, I've added a PNG over the United States of like a little red marker. And you can add whatever image you want, so long as it's like within the right stylings. But yeah, so let's go and add some markers to our map. If we wanted to add a circle annotation, we'd first need to determine where we would want it to spawn, and then we'll do some adjustments to like the color and the radius of the circle. But let's go do that. So in order to add this, we're gonna want to add brackets after our map declaration here, and then we're gonna declare the circle annotation inside of that. So let me grab some code here. Actually, I'll even type it out for you guys to see. So if I want to do like a circle annotation, you need to declare it with a center coordinate. Um, let's do coordinate. And then, so to keep things easy, I'm gonna just assign it the center of our viewport because then we'll know where the marker is spawning. A problem I run into sometimes is I'll pick a random location and forget that it's not actually in my viewport if I'm just trying to get things up and running. So you want to make sure you're actually able to see the marker. But so yes, we'll give it the center location and let's run that for now. All right, build succeeded. And so we'll see a little black dot in the middle of Providence. Now, like I mentioned before, if you wanted to go in and change, like, let's say, like the circle color, um, you could assign it to like, let's say red, for example. Um, and then let's also go in and change the circle radius so we can make it a little bigger and easier to see. Let's give it like a value of, let's say, like 10. And if we run that again, we'll see a bigger red dot in the center of Providence. There you go. Again, quick integration for circle annotations, but now let's move on to custom markers. So again, custom markers are great because you can add your own image. And to do that, we're gonna, like I said, gonna add the image. We'll create a reference to that image in code, and then we'll create the point annotation itself. All right, so let us do that. So I'm actually gonna start by just renaming this because they are built similarly in terms of their constructor. Um, sorry, I know, you're not gonna like that. Although I think, oh, actually, I just realized I think it is coordinate, it's not center coordinate. But so now we'll have our point annotation again, still centered over the center of our viewport. Um, but now I need to actually add the image itself. So if I pull up, let's say, a Finder window. I can grab this PNG right here, or this PDF here. And if I go into assets, sorry, I'll put that window back up. I can drag this into here and then get access to it. So now if I go back into content view, I'm gonna add the image like so. So we're gonna grab an image, we're gonna initialize it, and then we're gonna assign it, sorry, MI, and then UI image. We're gonna name it, or we're gonna grab the name dest pin. So we'll do dest dash pin. And then I'll grab like that. And then last but not least, I just need to reference the name one more time. Dest dash pin. All right. And so now we're giving it a UI image named dest pin. Oh, did I forget something? Oh, I need an exclamation point here. All right, we're giving it a UI image named dest pin like we added to our assets folder. So just make sure that those are named the same. And then we can get this up and running. And you should see the dest pin in the middle of your map. There you go. And again, this can be whatever you want. Just as long as it's like a PNG or PDF. I believe there might be other file support types too, but I know for a fact it's PNG and PDF. And yeah, you can also do things too of like, so technically the way that this is shaped, it's centered like over the exact center of the point. And so the point of the pin is a little lower than the actual, like where your longitude latitude is. So you can do things like add offsets and stuff to center that a little bit better. But yeah, so that's how adding custom markers works. Let's move on to adding GeoJSON data. So you might be thinking, okay, well, great, I'm hard coding all these longitudes and latitudes, but like that's going to get pretty exhausting when I have, let's say, like a dozen points or 100 points. So you can use GeoJSON data files to store all this information out of your code and then reference it and add it to your screen. So I'm going to show you guys how you can make these GeoJSON files using a tool called GeoJSON.io if you don't already have it with your company or the project that you're working on. But yeah, you can use the QR code here or reference the URL there. But let's go switch over to GeoJSON.io. So the really nice thing with this tool is that you can go in and add markers wherever, or you can also do like lines, you can do polygons, you can do all sorts of different things with this tool. So it's really helpful for creating this GeoJSON data. But let's take like a hypothetical scenario. Let's say I'm making a coffee app that shows you where all the hottest spots in Providence are to get a cup of coffee. And so I'll actually pull some fun examples of real places that I've been. But so what you could do is you could take the address of the coffee shop, paste it in search, and then it will bring you over to the point. And so now that I know where this exact location is in longitude and latitude, I can go and add a marker here, and then it will bring it up on the left side of my screen. And so the nice thing too is not only will it grab these like coordinates for you, but you can also make adjustments and edit the GeoJSON in here as well. So for example, this coffee shop that I just pinned is a place called Bolt Cafe. Really good place for like a co-working space. Actually on a work trip, a coworker and I went here and worked for a few hours, so highly recommend it. So you can do Bolt Cafe, and the nice thing is you can make these adjustments and then access this data later down the line. And you could add into like your properties, for example, different things like the name of the business, the phone number. You could add like maybe the most, the most popular three drinks in the restaurant, the a link to the menu, different things along those lines. But so again, if you don't have the data, this is a really easy way to like build it out yourself. But to that point, let's grab a couple of other locations. So, another place that I've been to in Providence that's really nice is a place called Plant City. They do more than just coffee. They also do like they have like restaurants and stuff, but they have a killer lavender latte. So I highly recommend them. They're also on the water, which is really nice. So it's a fun area to walk around. But yeah, so we can grab this guy here, and now they've added uh the next feature into our list, and then we could go in and just name it Plant City. All right. And then the last place I'll recommend is this really cool place called White Electric Coffee. They work with a lot of like local coffee roasters, and so they have some like pretty awesome coffee that you can bring home. Um, but yes, let's do that. Add that location. And then at the end here, we can, like we did before, do the name and then White Electric Coffee. And now we'll have these 3 points that we can work with. And so now that we've created all this, we can go in, copy the GeoJSON, and then add it to our project. Um, Now I already added these into a file separately, just so for ease of adding. But if I were to open up, let's say, actually, let me go here first. Let's open up a Finder window. I pasted all of these into this coffee JSON right here. I can take this and then drag it directly into my project. Like get rid of that. Oops. Make sure to link it to the correct target, and then you can copy another thing too. If you need this referenced in multiple places, make sure to copy it, not move it, because that might mess up other things. But yep, you can copy this over to your project and then hit finish. So now we have access to this file here. And what's that called? Yeah, we can, oh, actually, I forgot. I have an older place here. Let's paste all our new points here so we know we're up to date on the data. But yeah, so we have all these points here that we can now reference. Now, if you wanted to add this code to your project, there's going to be, or add these points to your project, there's going to be a bunch of different steps. So I'm going to copy over a larger section of code and then walk you through the implementation. So let's do this. And I'm going to copy and paste the whole thing. So here, I'll get rid of these. All right, so I'm going to walk you guys through this code. So up at the top here, we'll start and talk about the viewport. So I'm declaring the viewport as a separate object because it'll make things easier to reference. Um, for later down the line. Moving down here, we're now talking about the map reader. So the map reader is really helpful to access like underlying features of your map that might not be normally accessible, one of which is like on style loaded. And so this is really helpful because like you can grab event like dispatchers of like, oh, hey, like once the style loads, do a thing. And so in this case, we're going through, grabbing the map, and we're going to spawn markers based on our GeoJSON data. And I'll actually walk you through that functionality. Let me delete this really quick, so we'll come back to that afterwards. If we scroll down to spawning markers, we're grabbing that GeoJSON data, which I'll show you how to like parse through that afterwards. But we're grabbing that GeoJSON data and then for adding them all to a layer or all to a symbol layer, so you can have them all appear on screen and then spawn where each of those points are going to be. Um, Next, we're going to add the layer source to our map itself and then add an image for each place it has data for. And then lastly, this is just adding the layer itself, so those markers will then appear on the screen. If we scroll back up, if we're going to go and talk about decoding the GeoJSON data itself, first you need to go in and actually grab a reference to the file and do a guard just to make sure it actually exists. And then once we have that file path, we can go through and create a feature collection to store all of this data. Um, and then go through and decode each of the points into something parsable for us to use in our project. But yeah, and then lastly, this is actually like creating the symbol layer itself. So we're giving it a name, assigning it that image that we talked about above, and then returning the layer for us to use. So if we scroll to the top and hit play, we should see the 3 points appear on screen. There you go. And that's for each of the points. Like we mentioned, we had one near the water, which was Plant City. This one's over here, the Bolt Cafe. And then lastly, White Electric Coffee. But yeah, so super helpful GeoJSON data because we only did 3 points, but you could do like 12 points, 100 points. When you're getting super large, you might need to use other services. We have a tool called Mapbox Tiling Service, which helps if you have like a ton of data. We had a really awesome session earlier this week covered by one of my teammates where he went into depth about that. But yeah, so this is super helpful to use for if you're working with like smaller data sets. All right. So next, let's go back to our presentation. These are all the steps that we walked through in order to add those markers based on our data. But now we're going to move on to, oh, sorry, I should cover troubleshooting tips. So some general troubleshooting tips that you like that could be helpful. Make sure that your data is added correctly to the GeoJSON. Sometimes when you're editing in geojson.io, it's easy to like click in the wrong spot and start typing. For example, like if you're typing into properties here, you need to make sure like you're sticking between those two brackets. It's really easy to like accidentally click off and type in a wrong spot. Same thing of like make sure you're adding quotation marks around each of the individual elements because otherwise you're going to run into errors. But yeah, so something to definitely keep in mind when you're adding that GeoJSON to your project. Next, make sure the GeoJSON file is named .geojson all lowercase and not the uppercase. That will also spawn a problem. And then lastly, just make sure your files match or your file names match in code. It's really easy to typo those, but yeah, so let's move on to the next step. Um, the last major thing we're going to cover is fly to animations. So a problem that you might run into if, say, for instance, you're in your simulator here, or on an actual application on your phone, you could be like looking through your coffee locations. Let's say we have like a larger data set. As you're rolling around, you might go like, oh, are there any, cool places over in like West Providence or East Providence? And then kind of lose your placement. And so it can be hard to like manually maneuver back to the map. So the great thing with like fly to animations is that we can create a button that will allow us to like recenter the view of the map. And fly to animations can be used for a bunch of different things too, but for this use case, we'll have it like be like a recentering of your map. And then I'll cover some other use cases afterwards. But so let's walk through on how to do that. In order to do a fly to animation, if we were going to do like a reset the map on click or on tap, I should say, we're going to want to create a button to host this functionality. We're going to want to determine the center of the map so we know how to reorient our map and where exactly to go. And then on click of that button, we're going to want to actually fly to the center of the map. So let's go back to our code. And I'm going to copy over actually that function I deleted earlier. I'm going to copy that back over to show you how that works. So if I just gotta double check the placement. All right, after unlighted. So right after here, after the style or after the map reader declaration, we're gonna want to create a button. And we're gonna pass in some information into it. So we're gonna see with viewport animation, where this is kind of telling the viewport like how you want it to animate. We have a couple of different options because like there's fly to animations, which are really nice if you want to pull back off the map and zoom out and then zoom back into your point as if you're like flying over the map, as opposed to other animations that we have like ease to, where you're actually translating across the map and not changing the height or changing the zoom. But so we're going to tell it we're going to want to fly to animation specifically. We're also going to tell it that we want to do it of duration of 3 seconds. And then we're going to pass in to the viewport our new center coordinates. So we know exactly where to fly to on the map, and then also declare what the new zoom level is supposed to be. Also make sure to add like a text so you can reset your map and then change the wording on that so it's easier to see what it is. But yeah. Oh, and another thing too, again, like I mentioned before, it's good to pull this out too because it'll be easier to reference. Otherwise it won't be in scope. Because if you're declaring it in the actual constructor itself, you won't be able to adjust the values. So it's important to like create a viewport out here, assign it in here, like you see viewport and then $ viewport. Um, and then you'll be able to make those adjustments outside of the construction of the object. But all right, let's hit play, please. All right, and so now you see that we have a reset map button at the bottom of the screen. And so if I were to move around, let's say go way out of Providence, if I hit this button, it will neatly fly us back to the center of the map, um, and readjust our viewport. All right. So again, you can do a bunch of different things with fly twos. Another example that you'll see in a lot of use cases is if, say, for instance, you're doing like a search map, where you have like a search bar and you can like search for coffee locations, for example. Fly twos are also really helpful because once you search for that location, you can reset your viewport to fly over there. But yeah, so fly twos really helpful stuff. All right. So as you can see, our final result matches what we have in screen. And we've walked through all the steps I have to offer. I'm gonna spend a couple minutes talking about some potential next steps you can do to really level up your application. So first off, I uh, uh, definitely recommend adding different types of UI panels. If say for instance you wanted to add like interactivity to your markers and then click on them to like bring up certain information, because like we stored the name of those cafes in each of the GeoJSON points. It'd be really helpful to have different UI panels to have that information pop up so you could be like, oh hey, this not only is the name of the coffee shop, but you also have like the phone number and the top three menu items and things along those lines. And like I was just saying too, adding interactivity to your symbol layer so you can do things like clicking on the markers themselves because currently with our implementation, you can't tell which coffee shop is which. Um, we also, you can do adjustments like adding a custom style to your map. So right now we're just using like standard and using our out of the box stuff. But if say for instance, like you had a particular coffee chain that you were making an app for, you'd want to add maybe like their exact branding and do a bunch of different like intricate changes to like, this is the exact color of the water I want it when you're at like zoom level 4. But as you go in, I want it to be like a darker shade. You can make all those types of adjustments if you make your own style, for example. And then lastly, adding other SDKs like search and nav. So this is really helpful if like, again, going back to that coffee example, let's say you want to make an application that has like, hey, help me find all the coffee shops in Providence. I want to find the nearest coffee shop to me and I want you to help me navigate to get there. This would be good for like you could add search to not only search everything within like a certain bounds, but you could also add navigation to help direct your customer directly there. So yeah, integrating your application with other SDKs can really help you up the different features you can offer to customers. But yeah, so let me know if you guys have any questions. And then lastly, too, here's a link of the presentation, or the links I used throughout the presentation if you want to reference them again. But thank you guys so much. Huge shout out to Patrick Leonard for helping me with a lot of this code, as well as Chris and Andrew from my team for helping with reviewing the presentation. And huge shout out to Marina for emceeing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. What a fantastic orientation to getting started with the Maps SDK on iOS, and great ideas for kind of what's next and how to kind of level up your application. Um, let's see, we do have a couple questions coming in. We've got someone asking, is there somewhere I can see examples of implementations, like an example app, to explore what's possible with the SDK?
Yeah, definitely. So we got a few different options for you. If you wanted to like run an application and see it like actually on your like your phone or in your simulator, we have an entire like repo of stuff that you can utilize. I can try to find the links afterwards, but it's our like examples application and we have like a tutorial of how to walk through and get that up and running. And so that's nice because like the tough thing with mobile devices, you can't like have a simulated like example shown on screen. So this will allow you to like run that examples app on your like in Xcode so you can see the exact functionality without having to build it out yourself. Again, there's a little bit of an integration you have to do to like download the repo and then give it the correct information to get it up and running. But yeah, so if you look up even just like Mapbox examples app iOS, it should come up. Um, but so there's that if you want to see things in action. We also have all that code linked in individual pages for you to go in and like parse. And then for some examples, we also have companion tutorials where like if you want to go through and like do an integration, I'm trying to think of some examples we have. Like if you're doing like you want to create your own style and put a bunch of points into it, you can then pull that into your application. We have like a tutorial to walk you through how to do that. But yeah, I'd recommend going to the iOS examples page, the iOS examples application tutorial, and then lastly, Mapbox/help/tutorials, and then going and filtering through the iOS options.
Great, lots of resources. And I see, yeah, Chris and Andrew are helping, dropping some links in the chat. Thank you both.
Thanks, guys.
On the topic about adding data to the application, so there's a question that's come in. First, they said, thank you, Emily, for the presentation, very helpful. Curious about different options for adding data to my application beyond what you shared here today. Any tips you can share about other ways to bring in external data?
Yeah, so I got two other options for you. One of which is, like I mentioned before, Mapbox tiling services. We have another presentation discussing how to do that in more depth. But if you're working with, let's say, like a really big data set, MTS is awesome because it'll help you manage that on the back end, as opposed to like having a GeoJSON file with like hundreds of points. We also have the ability to add data into Mapbox Studio itself. So instead of like Because one of the things, if you're adding a physical file with the GeoJSON, if you need to like update those, like again, let's say you're doing a coffee shop app and you have the top three drinks appearing, you'd have to the current method I showed you, you'd have to redeploy your application every time you wanted to update that data, which obviously, gets tedious. If you do it through Mapbox Studio, which I believe we have a tutorial on how to do that, you can change that in our data sets editor if you like re-upload the data. And that would allow you to change that on the back end. And then you would just pass a style that's connected to that data to your application. And then whenever that updates, since the style is just linked in the code as opposed to like adding the file itself, it'll update it on the back end.
Great, good tips. I'm just watching the time. I think we're probably good to wrap up now. Unless Emily, is there anything else you'd like to share? Tips for getting started. Oh, sorry, we've got another question in. The question is, what are your favorite applications that use Mapbox on iOS? I'd like some inspiration. Do you have
Ooh.
any favorite apps?
A good question. Well, I hate to admit how often I've used Instacart. But I'd have to say that's one of them. We also have like I think it's All Trails, right? We have All Trails, which is great for hiking and stuff. So I've used that a couple of times. I'm an Android user, not to call myself out. But I believe it has iOS compatibility as well. I know my boyfriend has iOS, so I'll have to ask him his answers so I can cheat off him. But yeah, what's it called? I would say probably either All Trails or Guiltily Instacart.
Nice. Yeah, definitely both of those. And other folks, if you're in the chat, if you've got other favorite apps, please do share. Always looking for good inspiration. And yeah, actually, we had a presentation earlier today at Build from an iOS engineer at Delivery Hero, all about their learnings about performance when building with the SDK. So definitely in the iOS development world, go check out the recording of that session as well. Okay, with that, I think let's wrap up. Thank you so much, Emily, for this presentation. Lots of great resources and encouragement for folks getting started. Really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through it today.
Thank you for having me.